As I'm sure all of you are very aware, following the Parkland incident, many students became famous. These survivors became the voice of a gun reform movement. The March for Our Lives protest, in which many of these students were the focal point, garnered nearly 2 million people in protest around the country, and there were even protests in other countries calling for American gun reform. It is a fact to state these students have become public figures and political activists. So at what point is it okay to criticize them and their ideas? It would seem that many people who have been critical of these students have then been criticized by others for attacking children or for attacking survivors of a horrible tragedy. But certainly after netting nearly 600,000 Twitter followers, or in the case of Emma Gonzalez, 1.5 million Twitter followers, they will face criticism, they will face insults. So what's the latest news? Laura Ingraham mocked David Hogg, so he organized a brigade on Twitter that targeted her advertisers, who eventually pulled out. I think there's a lot to talk about here, there's a lot to criticize, and I think at some point we are going to have to criticize these kids. Now don't get me wrong, this video is not just going to bring about criticism for these public activists, it's also going to bring about criticism for those who are a bit aggressive online. But before I get into all that, let me give a quick shout out to today's sponsor. The Blinkist app transforms the key insights of 2,000 best-selling nonfiction books into powerful packs you can read or listen to in just 15 minutes. Over 5 million people are using Blinkist every day to glean the insights they need to become their best selves. Right now, Blinkist has a special offer just for you guys. You'll get 20% off by visiting the link in the description below. That's Blinkist.com/Tim Pool. So for those that are interested, I've included the link below, Blinkist.com/Tim Pool. Check it out and sign up today. The first story from NBC News. Laura Ingraham loses advertisers after criticizing Parkland student David Hogg. David Hogg took on Fox News' Laura Ingraham and succeeded in getting advertisers to jump ship. A number of advertisers have abandoned Fox News host Laura Ingraham's weeknight show after she alleged Parkland, Florida shooting survivor David Hogg was bitter over his rejection for freshman admission by multiple universities. Those companies pulling their ads include TripAdvisor, Expedia, Hulu, Johnson & Johnson, Wayfair, Nestle, and Nutrish. A spokesman for TripAdvisor said the company doesn't condone the inappropriate comments made by this broadcaster. In our view, these statements focused on a high school student crossed the line of decency. The tweet in question from Laura Ingraham said, "David Hogg rejected by 4 colleges to which he applied and whines about it. Dinged by UCLA with a 4.1 GPA, totally predictable given acceptance rates." The story from the Daily Wire that Ingraham tweeted reads, "Gun rights provocateur David Hogg rejected by 4 colleges to which he applied." The Florida high school student, a survivor of the February 14th shooting in Parkland, who recently helped organize the March for Our Lives, said 4 different campuses in the University of California school system have turned him down: UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, and UC Irvine. "If colleges want to support us in that, great. If they don't, it doesn't matter. We're still going to change the world." So let's start with some fresh criticism for Laura Ingraham, but trust me, there is plenty of criticism to go around. I don't really think, at least according to that article, David was really whining about it. I think he actually had a nice, humble statement at the end that if they don't want to support him, it is what it is, and he's going to do his thing. I think that's respectable. However, the response to the mockery, in my opinion, was disproportionate. David Hogg tweeted, "Pick a number, 1 through 12. Contact the company next to that number. Top Laura Ingraham advertisers." And he says, Sleep Number, AT&T, Nutrish, Allstate and Esurance, Bayer, Rocket Mortgage, Liberty Mutual, Arby's, TripAdvisor, Nestle, Hulu, and Wayfair. And as we've already seen from the NBC News article, TripAdvisor, Expedia, Hulu, Johnson & Johnson, Wayfair, Nestle, and Nutrish have pulled out. Look, when you are an adult, when you have a large following, David has got a lot of followers. He's got 660,000, the actual number, 659,761 followers. When you have a following this large and you are as influential as David has become, you have to expect that other people are going to mock, criticize, and insult you. That's just the way it is. So is the appropriate response to use your new large following to brigade the advertisers of someone who insulted you? In my opinion, no, but look, David can do whatever he wants. but organizing a protest among his 660,000 followers to send calls to advertisers because he doesn't like being insulted is a bit disproportionate and, in my opinion, a bit immature. But suffice it to say, David's strategy worked because many advertisers did pull out and Laura had to issue an apology. She tweeted, "Any student should be proud of a 4.2 GPA, including David Hogg. On reflection, in the spirit of Holy Week, I apologize for any upset or hurt my tweet caused him or any of the brave victims of Parkland. For the record, I believe my show was the first to feature David." She continues, "Immediately after that horrific shooting, and even noted how poised he was given the tragedy. As always, he's welcome to return to the show anytime for a productive discussion." And where are we from there? Well, Mediaite has a story. Parkland student David Hogg talks Laura Ingraham on CNN. She needs to stand down. David Hogg appeared on CNN Friday morning in the wake of the advertiser boycott he has led against Laura Ingraham's Fox News show, after the host taunted him for his college application rejections. Ingraham sent out a single tweet mocking Hogg, and after a backlash and calls for an advertiser boycott in response, she apologized in another tweet. Hogg did not accept her apology, and a number of companies have pulled ads from her show. A Twitter user posted one of their messages to Sleep Number, stating, "I was just wondering why Sleep Number is using the $8,000 I gave the company to buy my bed to fund the hateful Laura Ingraham shows on Fox." To which they responded, "I'm sorry for any confusion. I certainly understand your concern. We have a broad suite of networks where we advertise, but do not place media buys on specific shows. As we plan our ad buys, we don't take a stance on content or views with programs we advertise on or fund specific shows, which is common practice. With that said, we regularly review our advertising strategy to decide appropriate placement, and I can certainly pass your feedback along and ensure it reaches the right people." Laura Ingraham mocked David Hogg. In fact, I think she was being a little bit hyperbolic because, in my opinion, I don't think David was actually whining about not getting into schools. In response, David used his large following of nearly 660,000 followers to direct a brigade against advertisers of Laura Ingraham's show. I think that is disproportionate. And I also think at this point, we need to recognize that with the large following and power that David Hogg has, we absolutely need to challenge and criticize him. It is not fair to say that simply because they are high school students or survivors or children that they are free from criticism. If David Hogg is going to be a part of an organization that rallies 2 million people to protest, we need to have a serious discussion about his ideas and what he is doing with his following. I think we have to be very careful about an individual who would target the advertisers of a show simply because they posted a tweet mocking them. I think most adults, people who are a bit more mature, would take a more reasonable approach to this and just respond with, "Hey, feel free to mock me, whatever, I'm gonna do my thing." Now, I say brigade, and let me clarify what this means. A brigade is when you rally a following to target a specific link, show, or direct them to take a specific action. In this instance, David was personally slighted. This is not about the gun debate. This is not about Laura's opinions on guns. This is about Laura sending a personal insult to David, in which David's response was to rally nearly 660,000 people to complain to her advertisers. And unfortunately, here's the bigger mistake. The advertisers who made their announcement and pulled out, in my opinion, have made a terrible error. They have just placed themselves into the gun debate, but not over gun issues, over someone who couldn't handle taking a personal insult from another public figure. Hulu posted on Twitter in response to David Hogg that they were canceling their ads, saying, "We'd like to confirm that we are no longer advertising on Laura Ingraham's show and are monitoring all of our ad placements carefully." Did that work? The first response, "I just went ahead and found another provider and canceled your service. Have fun virtue signaling." It would seem like this individual is canceling not because they like Hogg, but because Hulu was canceling their advertising. You see, the point is, no matter what side these companies take, they will face a backlash. The smartest thing anyone can do in an incident like this is stay out of it. Again, this isn't even about the gun debate at this point. This is more about the culture war. This person tweeted that Hulu was virtue signaling, so they canceled. In fact, Hulu tweeted a second time, "We'd like to confirm that we are no longer advertising on Laura Ingraham's show and are monitoring all of our ad placements carefully," to which someone responded, "Really? Just read this thread of tons of people canceling, and these are just the people tweeting, tons more." All of this is very obvious. When you become a public figure, you will receive public criticism. People will start to say nasty things about you all day, every day. You will probably get death threats. And that's the worst part of this. And I don't know if they have, I know I have in the past, and that's something that happens. Being in the public and having a large following comes with responsibility. I would never use my following to attack an advertiser or some company because they insulted me. You have to be a bit more mature about this. And you have to think, how does that reflect on you and your movement? David Hogg was upset for being insulted. So he started a boycott against a TV show? Just seems pretty unreasonable if you ask me. In the Mediaite story, Camerota pointed out that Ingraham is a conservative talk show host and isn't objective, before noting that she apologized for her tweet poking fun at Hogg. "Do you accept her apology?" "No," Hogg said. "She's only apologizing after a third of her advertisers pulled out. I think it's wrong, and I think if she really wants to do something, she could cover inner city violence and the real issues that we have in America," he continued. "I know she is a talk show host, but as such, she also has a responsibility to show both sides of the story." And I agree with the last part of that statement. I think everyone has a responsibility to be honest. But what is the most important story? That's for an individual to decide. If Laura Ingraham wants to focus on certain issues she thinks are important, that's all she can do. It's impossible to cover everything all the time. But let's look at what happened. She apologized. She lost some advertisers, and David said no. He's doubling down and continuing to go for her advertisers. David Hogg tweeted, "Can we please not debate this as Democrats and Republicans, but discuss this as Americans? In the comments, if you see someone you disagree with, do not attack each other. Talk to one another. This applies to me too. We must work together to save our future." 19,394 retweets. I would like to make sure David is aware of his own tweet. Being insulted by someone is not a political debate, and it is not grounds to send your followers after their advertisers. Additionally, even if you think it's okay, to the people watching and say, "No, what, David's in the right," sure. She apologized. She walked back her statement. David, you won. Why you continue to drive the attack against her, I don't understand. But this just scares me because I see someone who has gained a massive amount of power and is willing to use it even after someone has submitted to them. So I guess the last thing I would say is take your own advice, David, and perhaps instead of directing a brigade, a boycott against her advertisers, you could have talked to her. She invited you on her show, and maybe that's the best thing we can do is have a conversation. Because when you sit down with people, it becomes infinitely harder to attack them. Though sometimes these attacks escalate. When we have discussions, we start to realize that we actually have a lot more in common. I think most people want the same things. We want the world to be better. We want people to be happier. We want to prosper. We just disagree on how we're going to get there. Sometimes we disagree a whole lot, and some people can get pretty crazy. But for the most part, I think we're all just trying our best to make the world better. And so maybe, again, take your own advice, David, and have a conversation. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Should we be able to criticize these students? Look, in my opinion, yes. They're high-profile public activists, and their ideas need to be challenged. Their use of power needs to be challenged. But I don't think I have all the answers. I don't think I'm always right or anything like that. So certainly I could be wrong, and I'm open to hearing real arguments from all of you. Do you think that these children are victims and should be allowed to speak freely without criticism? Or do you agree with me? Comment below. Let me know what you think. You can follow me on Twitter at Timcast. Stay tuned. New videos every day at 4 p.m. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.